Hi there, I'm Jill Konrath, author of 4 best-selling sales books. Selling to Big Companies, Snap Selling, More Sales, Less Time, and Agile Selling, which is all about how to get new salespeople up to speed as fast as humanly possible. Today I'm talking to Jake Reni from Tile, Peter Chun from Lucidchart, and Jody Maxon from Bill.com. Now each of these people come from very different companies and have very different experiences, but we'll be finding out their strategies to shorten the ramp time of their new hire salespeople to get them on board and producing as fast as possible. Jake Reni, it's so fun to be here with you today.
It's great to be here with you, Jill.
Yeah, it's fun to see you. You are VP of Sales at Tiled now. Who is Tiled?
Yeah, that's a good question. We are a platform that allows creatives and designers and marketers and non-technical people to create beautiful, interactive, high-fidelity content without any code. So the idea
sounds like it would appeal to somebody like me.
Well, I love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, if you can imagine, the idea of how you can interact with content, and if you can design it in your mind, you can bring it to life in Tiled. And you don't need the expensive budgets and the time and the resources that you would normally need if you were going to code it. So we give you an experience that rivals code without needing to have that expense budget, right?
It sounds like a godsend to the normal human being.
Correct.
Which is who you're marketing to?
We're focusing mainly on enterprise organizations.
Okay.
Given that they might have the design resources in their organizations. But really, any B2B company that has a desire to market to any audience, right? So we, in retail, we have customers like Skull Candy doing really cool things with micro apps, is what we call the file type, in their retail shops on iPads, so that people can go in and see headphones, and before they have to ask a retail salesperson information, they can just go play around on the iPad on the micro app. Or we have big B2B use cases where people are sending sales collateral back and forth to buyers, or in sales training, like internal facing content.
So you do lots. So you can call on, you're calling enterprise, but who within the organization are you contacting?
We have 3 core personas. So we have sales personas, which we go after for sales customer facing collateral, or for sales pipeline creation. And then we have sales enablement kind of in that bucket for sales training. And then we have designers, creatives, that are really on the brand side and owning the design in the organization. And then we have marketers, right? Who really want to learn how their buyer is consuming, the behavioral insights of how the consumer is actually consuming the information and the pathways. And so they love the analytics that a micro app can provide, because they can see, wow, this person took this journey, this pathway through this choose your own adventure approach that we have in a micro app.
Nice. So your sales force.
Yes.
How big?
We are 8 today.
8
Yes.
today.
Yeah, we are slowly growing. We are small.
You are a startup.
Yep.
8 people on your sales team. And we're here to talk about onboarding today. So I suspect onboarding is fairly crucial to you as a young company.
It is.
Tell me more about your thoughts on onboarding.
It's interesting. When you're at a small company, you don't have necessarily all the resources. You don't have all the content built out. And so when you strip all of that away and you think about what's most important, the first things I really focus on is how do I help them with process? And so I've really worked hard to establish process for my new teams, so that if anything, they can do it the same way every single time. Okay,
define process in terms of what exactly are you talking about? Say you hired me, what is the process that I would use?
Yeah, so we eat our own dog food. We've built many micro apps to onboard our teams. So we have micro apps that walk them through their first day at the company, right, in the first week. So here are the things that you need to do. Here are the checklist of items that need to happen. Here's your HR onboarding process. Here are the things that you need to order. Here are the team members you need to get to know. Here are the company values. And then we have micro apps that are playbooks. So like here's everything you need to know about the product. Here's everything you need to know about best practices. And then here's everything you need to know about our customers. And so the process is making sure that they understand who we are as a company and what their role is, and who our customer is.
Okay, and then you actually have a defined sales process within that too that you talk about?
Correct. And then when I talk really about process, I talk about showing them, and I take them out of micro apps and I take them into our CRM, and I focus on, okay, here's how we set up our journey from start to finish. We have 5 stages. Here's what we do within these stages, and here's what has to happen every single time to verify that the buyers are ready, and how do we do these things so that the process is laid out, and then after the process is laid out, we can work on the actual skills that are required to do that really well within it. So there's activities, and behind each activity is a skill set that needs to be developed.
So at this point, you bring a person on. You're bringing on experienced sales professionals?
A little bit of both.
A little bit of
both.
I mean, okay.
Yeah, at this stage, I definitely lean towards the experienced professionals. I need people to bring in that knowledge and experience with them, very much so.
Right.
So it's still at a stage, like you might call them, founder leads if their customers are going after it, and I would call them kind of founder leads when it comes to the talent that we're trying to bring in, people that we know that can help us build this. I've hired a couple entry-level salespeople, and but I have to keep that at minimum because it's hard to bring someone into a world where there is not a lot of resource for them, and then expect them to just go.
Right. So so you're bringing people in who have some knowledge, but you still have to educate them on how you do things at your company, and who your buyers are, and what they care about, and what works.
Correct.
What works. Okay.
So I look for people who have a tendency or a disposition towards the things that I think would make them successful. A girl I just hired came from Skull Candy, our customer.
Okay.
She was the rep. She was the retail rep in the sales floor, selling with micro apps. So
she really understands what the buyer is looking for. She doesn't understand the sales process yet.
Correct.
But she understands. So she has a whole new skill set to learn.
Correct. Yeah.
Well, that's fun. That's fun. Now you have a sales stack too, in terms of what technologies are you using? You mentioned CRM.
Yep. So I actually brought the whole sales stack to Tiled, which was crazy fun.
You started out with nothing.
They had just implemented HubSpot CRM, but weren't really using it. There was maybe 2 stages in there, and everything was just loading up. So I established the stages and the criterion there, and all the exit and entrance criteria, and the buyer behavior verifiers and the sales rep activities that were required for each stage. Then I introduced Zoom video conferencing. I introduced Chorus for them to, because we don't have so many enablement resources. We don't have any enablement people, so we need to create some tribal knowledge, right?
You are the enablement person. Okay. Tribal knowledge.
Yeah, we have to share that information together and learn from one another and watch each other's videos and see how we can improve. And then we have implemented Zoom Info so that they can gather insights, and then Sales Navigator. So from one day to the next, they went from pretty much spreadsheets to, I think, 6 different tools in their stack.
Oh my.
Which is
did
not
we have
something,
a little bit of overwhelm there?
I did it slowly.
Okay.
I have rolled these out over the course of like 5 months.
Okay.
Because I've made that mistake in the past at Adobe, too many tools, too much, and then you risk 2 or 3 of them not being adopted. Yes. And then you've got shelfware, and that's never fun.
Shelfware. No, nobody wants shelfware. You want tools that people use on a regular basis that contribute. So you just mentioned Adobe again. And I know that you worked and did a ton of onboarding at Adobe. I mean, that was your primary role there. Can you explain what you did there?
Yeah, by the time I left, yes, that's right. When I started there, I was running North America, actually America's specialist organizations for inside sales. But then I went into what was called the Adobe Sales Academy, and I ran that program for the last 2 years I was there. And that program was basically an operational role. It was in a lot of ways, it was a RevOps role, enablement. It was tech stack, strategy, all the hiring of the new talent into the organization. I was hiring 100 to 120 new reps a year, and then the whole process of onboarding, and what it took to get them from new hire to revenue ready, and then how do they progress and certify? Yeah, how do they certify throughout each role so they can step into a field role?
So, what did you learn?
Oh my gosh, so much.
Yeah?
Where do we start? Like what kind of things?
What did you learn about onboarding people that truly does make a difference?
So here's an interesting insight that I learned that might be counterintuitive to a lot of people, that shadowing doesn't work the way you think it works. It was interesting. I always had to, I had to fight with some of my frontline managers all the time because they always wanted me to, well, just get more shadowing, you get more reps shadowing. And the reality is, just simply put, one, it doesn't scale. Two, just as much as that one individual rep is successful doesn't necessarily mean that that skill set replicates across the org or across different people.
Okay.
Third, you also replicate bad behaviors, right? So
Yeah.
you shadow, and what I would always hear coming back from those shadowing experiences was not necessarily all the great things they learned, but hey, these people told me to do things a little bit different.
Different than you're teaching
here,
us, and you
right?
don't have to listen to him on
Right,
that.
right. And
Well,
so
that's good.
started to observe that you accelerate not only the good, but you accelerate what I started calling the suck as well. and I say that in jest,
Yeah,
but
I know.
the reality is you don't have an ability to actually have control over the best behavioral practices.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one big thing I learned. And I think another big thing I learned from that process, that whole experience, was that you need to start right by hiring the right people. It starts at the very, very beginning.
Yeah. And what did you look for in salespeople?
Curiosity was very, very important to me. Like, one attribute that I really cared about was gratitude.
Gratitude.
People who had gratitude were willing to work harder, were willing to push themselves, were willing to learn, were willing to put in that extra bit of effort. Because I think a mindset of gratitude helps you recognize where you are and why you have it and what it can mean for you. And so you tend to appreciate what you have and cherish it more. And in a work environment in sales where it's so hard, especially in an SDR entry-level role, it is a grind. And these poor, I say poor, new hires, they don't know what's going to get thrown at them. We are asking modern day sellers to do more and do it faster and to achieve more than we've ever asked before. Mm-hmm. And so a sense of gratitude to me was very critical.
So how do you assess gratitude in an interview process?
Yeah, that's a good question. When you're wanting to learn about people who don't have any career experience, especially a university grad that I was hiring, what programs were they involved in on campus? Did they give time back to other programs? Were they involved in extracurricular activities? Did they do service projects? Did they pay for those experiences on their own? A lot of them, which was interesting, a lot of people used to try to explain to me the hardest experiences they ever had by telling me about privilege. And what I mean by that is, when I'd ask them, hey, explain to me one of the hardest experiences you've ever had, and they would explain to me, well, my parents paid for me to fly to Africa, and I spent 1 week with cold showers, and that was so trivial and difficult for me. And I was thinking to myself, you're explaining your challenges by really establishing that you've been privileged.
Yeah.
Right? And I want to know, what have you done? What have you taken control of, and what have you created for yourself that has helped you recognize how grateful you are?
I've never heard anybody talk about gratitude, ever. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And it has a lot of ramifications, like you say, all the way through the whole process. Now, the other thing that you told me when we talked earlier about Adobe was that you learned about measurement and you had tons of metrics.
Yes.
I think the metrics that you talked about are very interesting, and I know you're not using all of them right now because you don't have the bandwidth in your current position, but it certainly influences your mind and how you're doing things. So what metrics did you
That's a good point.
have?
Yeah, so we had anyone who might be watching this or listening to this who is in enablement will recognize this pain right away. It's very difficult to measure impact if you're in some sort of an enablement role. And leaders want to measure it in the weirdest ways, and so we end up measuring it with percentage of completion or how many people actually took the assessment. And we measure things and you're going to get me nerdy here for a second, but we measure things on a level 1 on a Kirkpatrick scale of enablement learning, which is, did they attend yes or no, or did they did they complete yes or no?
Right.
And that has no insight on knowledge retention in any way.
None.
None. And we really struggle to measure things on a level 3 of a Kirkpatrick scale is, can they actually demonstrate? So going back to your question, the first things I measured was how quickly did it take them to actually ramp to where they hit their first full month of quota activity, right?
Okay.
So not consistent, just the first month it took, right? So,
okay, so if you hired me in June,
how long did it take you to get that first month's worth of quota?
Okay.
Right? And then it's how long did it take you to actually hit consistently your quota?
Right,
so
it's 1 month it might be an anomaly.
Right, so it's really first time to pacing, second time to actually quota attainment, right? And then the third thing was overall org quota attainment. So are we helping the org attain? And are we seeing by role a lift? And then the other things that we measured were their ability to articulate, right? So from day one, they were getting certifications. We created, I think, 30 different certifications. And
these certifications were
for each skill set that we identified. So
skill set.
Yes.
Skill set meaning
what you take each stage.
Okay.
And you break down each stage into activities required to hit those stages successfully. What are the skills behind each one of those activities that are required to be successful at that activity? How do we teach that skill?
Okay.
How do we certify that skill? And we would have them, very first thing is pitch on video. And we have them pitching, recording videos of their Adobe pitch, and then they're recording videos on the next product and on the next product, and then listening in on calls, on chorus. And then at the end of the week, they would do mock calls, and then we would move them into real calls. And so it's like baby steps, right? Like spaced learning concepts of getting them to that point where they could prove that they could actually do it, as opposed to shadowing and then.
As opposed to shadowing and coming back and saying, he said, don't do this.
Correct.
That's not how we do it.
Or really what really happens is practicing in front of the actual customer.
Practicing in front of the customer.
Right.
You advocate that.
No, I do not.
Not at all.
But it happens all the time. It does. Let's mess up on, let's just have this person shadow and let's get them on a call, and then let's have them mess up in front of the customer. And there's data out there that shows that in enterprise organizations, strategic organizations, if you screw up an opportunity to get into that account, it can take 7 years to come back to that opportunity again. 7 years, because you think enterprise companies win deals on a 3-year cycle. Right? So if you lose that first deal and then they renew with that customer, you're at 7 years.
You'll never get it back.
Right.
So we don't let people practice on their customers. Tell me what you do to get people to practice before they make the calls, and how do you improve their sales skills in a safe environment?
So like I said, we used Chorus a ton to record with each other's peers, right? Their cohort, with their mentors, with their team leaders.
Okay, now are we talking back at Tile now?
Back at Tile. No, sorry, this was at Adobe.
Okay.
And so I had a lot of structure there.
Okay.
You want to talk about Tiled?
Yeah, let's talk about Tiled now.
We pare that down. You don't
have all
don't
that
have all
stuff,
that.
right?
Yeah,
no.
that's
you're running
off
lean
my
and
shoulder.
mean, and the whole thing's on your shoulders.
So we do that at we scale it down.
Okay.
So it's the same process, but we do it we still do it with Chorus, and we do it with Slack. So they come in and they have to record their pitches in Slack, and they record a video and they post it to a channel. We call it Ring Ring.
Okay.
And in the Slack channel, they record them pitching, certain personas and certain products on a weekly basis. And then at the end of the week.
On a weekly basis. Okay, so you're not letting this it's not just once and done.
No, it's
not just I've been certified, check, I don't have to do this.
This is not an event. This is a journey. I'm still certifying my skills in my life, you know? Yeah. They record on the Monday they record. On a Tuesday they get feedback and they re-record.
And everybody's doing this on Monday.
Correct.
Everybody's
recording. And new hires.
Okay.
New hires. So they record on Monday, they get feedback, they re-record on that Tuesday, then that Friday.
Re-record.
Correct.
They have to
establish that they can actually take feedback and demonstrate that they can apply it.
Okay.
You'd be surprised how many people cannot actually apply feedback.
Whoa.
And that's a skill that you have to develop as well. Not just doing something well, but processing it.
How do you work with people on that? I mean, I'm sure you'd prefer to hire people that took feedback.
I assess it in the interview process.
Okay.
So I always do an interview with a role play. and I give them really direct feedback in the interview, and I say, let's try it again. And this is actually a tip I got from Mark Roberge.
Right, I know he does that.
In the sales acceleration formula.
Right.
I thought, brilliant. And I started applying it, and it was kind of a revelation to me to see that it works. There are people who they say they understand, they say they listen, and then they try to attempt it again, and it just word for word the same issue. I don't care if they're nervous.
Right.
Because they're going to be nervous.
Everybody's going to be nervous.
And I don't care if they mess up, because failure needs to be normalized. I think that I care that did they attempt to apply one element of the feedback that I gave them. So I assess that in the interview.
In the interview process, and then when you get them on board, you're constantly giving them feedback, and their peers give them feedback.
Their peers. So I have all the peers give feedback. And
To
you'll
the new
notice,
hire.
To the new hire.
Now, how does the new hire ever listen in and give feedback on other people's stuff?
Yes, because there's no hierarchy, right? You're not the new hire, you're not the greenie, you're not going to get paddled, right? Like this is, you're part of the team. You are. There's no hierarchy in this organization. Everyone is, whether you're an SDR or you're an AE, we are part of an account team, and together we work together. And so the same goes for feedback. Giving direct feedback is a hard thing to do, but in the beginning, the individuals might not like it. It's a little uncomfortable for them, and you might see them kind of
Flinch,
feel uncomfortable. But if you show that you're doing it in a safe environment, and you show that you're doing it with a basis of trust, then you'll notice within a week they quickly learn to appreciate it, and then they learn to crave it.
Really?
And then you have SDRs posting constantly recordings and calls and asking for feedback. And there's a shift, and that shift actually happens very quickly, but it has to be built on a foundation of trust.
And the trust comes from, what do you do to establish that?
By everyone being involved.
Everyone being
showing
vulnerable.
that a new hire to a senior AE, nobody's safe, quote unquote, in the sense of you're all going to get feedback, and we're all going to share, and an SDR can provide really great insight to an AE and vice versa.
Yeah, different perspectives.
Correct.
They see different things. An AE may get super confident at times.
Yeah, and they think that they've done it all, and sometimes they forget that they need to follow process, and they skip little steps, And an SDR right now is really codifying everything in their mind of how they do things, and so they're going to say, hey, you know what, you kind of missed this part of the call, and you maybe could have provided a better summary here, and the AE goes, oh yeah, you're right.
Shocker,
Yeah.
but it keeps them on their toes.
Yeah.
It keeps everybody learning and growing.
Correct.
Yeah. So what final words do you have about onboarding that you'd like to share with anybody who's listening in right now in terms of how do you make it work? I mean, how do you shorten that time to consistently achieving their quota?
Yeah, that's a good question. Going back quickly to Adobe, we had the luxury of measuring all these things. Okay?
Yes.
And what we measured was we were able to reduce time to ramp this time to pacing by about 30 days. We were able to reduce the time to quota attainment or quota readiness by another 60 days. And then we were able to reduce, we were actually able to increase the org's quota attainment. But the more interesting thing that we were able to attain was we studied when we got a rep out of an SDR role, a BDR role, into the field, that BDR ramped faster in a field role than an external hire with 2 to 3 years of experience. And then we also studied beyond that 3 years. So in the second year, we saw something interesting, that the external hire outpaced the SDR in the second year, and they outperformed them. But in the third year, that SDR came back and outperformed and did better overall. And so overall, the investment in an internal organization hire that went through an academy type of a program was a better investment. And so to go back to your question, the answer there is invest in your team, invest in a program, invest in process.
Don't keep looking out there for somebody who can come in and be the savior.
Yeah, or operationalize an enablement program and invest in the right resources, invest in the right tools, and invest in instructional designers if you can, and build a program that really helps them to practice. And develop the skills that they need to be successful.
And you said normalize failure too.
And normalize failure. Create safe practice environments, because that is where That's perhaps one of the most engaging things for new hires is I feel like I am getting better and I want to stay here because I'm honing my craft.
I'm getting better.
Better.
That's what people want. They want to get
right.
better. They don't want to fail.
Right.
So if you normalize failure, they're not failing, they're just consistently
They're iterating.
They're getting better, fine-tuning.
That's right.
Eliminating problems.
That's right.
I do it well. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
It's
Jill.
been really fun talking with you today.
Likewise, thank you.
Thanks. If you're watching, here's what I hope for you. I hope you'll first of all understand the critical nature of onboarding and how important it is to the ongoing success and profitability of your entire sales organization. Investing time in onboarding is one of the smartest things that you as a sales leader can do. If you do it right, your sales reps get up to quota faster. And if you do it wrong, they fail, they leave the company, and then you have to start all over again. So listen up to what these people have to say. You'll get a lot out of it.